So, it's a good thing to be humble because pride comes before a fall. And while this sounds a little silly to say out loud, I kind of considered myself an expert on potatoes just because I eat so darn many of them. And I learned something new about potatoes that I did not know. So I know that if you cook them in a microwave, you need to poke the potatoes, right? Well, I didn't know that might need to carry over to the oven too. And apparently, if you have a little potato and you haven't poked it, which, okay, let me just preface this by saying I have literally cooked tens of thousands of potatoes. And I know that sounds like a bit extreme, but I actually did the math and how many years I've eaten so many of them. I did the math. It's actually I've eaten literally tens of thousands of potatoes. So I thought that I knew what I was doing. I've never had one explode on me, but it did. And it was a little potato, and it was on very high heat in the oven, and it exploded, and it was not my oven, and so I felt pretty bad, but I was able to get it clean, and so it was all good. My friend was very gracious. But I learned that if you cook a small potato on high heat in an oven without poking it, the possibility for it to explode definitely exists. So, learned that. I also learned today, oh, happy Memorial Day, everyone. That's awesome. America's great. Jesus is awesome for giving us this country. And so many of the freedoms we have here, it's ridiculous. There's no place on the world like this. Yeah, wow. It's great. But actually, Memorial Day, which is celebrating and respecting our deceased veterans, has roots in Carbondale, Illinois. It started in the Civil War in 1864, and women started putting flowers on the graves of fallen soldiers. And Carbondale, Illinois was the first city to ever make a deal out of it. And so they did that for a few years, and then I believe it was Waterloo, New York, picked it up, and they're the ones that made it a really big deal. But back in my hometown, that's great. So yeah, just wanted to. So if you're gonna cook a small potato, poke it if it's going to be on high heat. Otherwise, you could have a very interesting reaction in your oven. So, just going to share that with y'all.